Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Trump brings up this man from Venezuela onto the stage, and the story that he gives really needs to be shouted from the mountaintops, from the rooftops, and of course the liberal media is not going to touch it, but we will. But before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out over to our great sponsors at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have the cure to Bidenflation and Harris economics, but more on that later. Now, let's dive in.
And I'd like to call up Daniel. Please come up and tell us about your experience in living in a country that went very, very bad, went radical left, and the experience has not been good. Please come up. Thank you. Hi, Daniel.
Appreciate it. Okay. All right. First of all, hi everybody. Thank you for coming here and supporting the president. I'm going to say the first part of the speech, of my story in English, then I'm going to repeat it in Spanish in order to allow our Latino voters to understand and hear what the situation is going on. First of all, as the president already said, I'm from Venezuela. I left the country in 2007 because of communism. I still have family there. There's been family that that has left even before me or continues living little by little. But going further back, my grandparents from my mom's side were from Cuba. They were at university when the communist revolution was going on, and they ended up leaving to Venezuela. They only have the money they received for their wedding present, and they were living in a mid-house, going to school, and trying to move ahead. My granddad ended up becoming a doctor and had a family raising 3 children, my mom and my 2 uncles. When in the early 1990s, Chavez did a military coup, and right after he ran for president, my granddad saw the similarities to what was happening in Cuba, and he told everybody that would listen to him that it was coming. And everybody was like, nah, this is Venezuela, this is not Cuba, this will never happen to us. And guess what? It happened to us, and has been happening to other Latin American countries as well. So when they tell you here, it will never happen, that's not true. We lived it, now here we are. So in 2007, we ended up leaving because the socialists and the government started changing the education system to make it more like the Cuban education system. It might ring a bell to what's going on here as well. So it's extremely important for everybody to keep this in mind. We are going on a path that is taking us to what Venezuela became. And the only way right now that we can avoid keep going down that path is making Trump president again.
Great. What a fantastic job. I said, have you done that before? He said, no, sir. You are something.
It has been tried in massive nations that have spanned every single kind of climate: desert, jungle, temperate. It has spanned over Siberia, the Ural Mountains, through Russia. It has been tried in the Korean Peninsula. It has been tried in Cuba. And currently there have been little lefty revolutions in parts of Africa, in desert nations, in parts of Africa where it's mostly jungle, and parts of Africa where it's dry but you can at least farm. And then in one of the best located nations in the world, with a rich, vast lake of oil that they're just sitting on, with with a year-round growing season, good climate. They're not quite in the jungle, they're not quite in the mountains, they've got a little bit of everything. And yet Venezuela is one of the worst run nations on this planet. All because they elected leftist Marxists into office. And Chavez, who got this ball rolling, nationalized the oil industry and started paying off his buddies, basically doing what poorly advised capitalists were already doing, but instead skimming off the top and just enriching himself. Hey y'all, in case you haven't noticed, this has gone to this. It is absolutely insane. What the feds have done, constantly printing money, making sure that your dollar becomes less and less valuable, has hurt the economy and has probably hurt you in ways that you can't even imagine yet. That's why we partner with Colonial Metals Group. CEO Paul Stone and his associates understand the ins and outs of protecting your hard-earned dollars backed by gold, silver, and other precious metals. And they even have a limited time offer for first-time buyers. Free gold and silver IRA accounts, insured storage for 5 years, up to $7,500 in free silver, and a personal safe to keep all the good stuff. So go check them out, link in the description below, or call this phone number to talk to one of the many lauded associates at Colonial Metals Group to protect your hard-earned dollars today. And then Nation said, we don't like working with you. You need to do better at your job. And so what he does, he decides to nationalize more things. He decides to inflate his currency. Leftist economics rarely ever work. As a matter of fact, I can think of only one time in history where it has. And that's when you're dealing with land reform. You know what, too? There was... And by the way, any attempt at land reform will almost always get you revolutioned in the ancient world. But that's a weird history lesson. We'll use an American exception. When FDR came to power, he had a mandate from the people to fix the Great Depression. What he did was create a whole bunch of new government groups, half of which worked, half of which made everything worse. And then he implemented policies and tried to pack the court and basically tried to undercut the Constitution in every way he could with the greatest of intentions. FDR truly wanted to help the American people. But his legacy is a bloated government, Social Security, which we can't fund anymore. We can't do it. It was more collectivized styles. Collectivism can work. Things like the FDIC, certain branches of the military are now thanks to FDR and his reforms. Good things can happen, but it's rare that it ever really works. And what we saw in Venezuela and in Cuba is Marxist-style governments coming in and just ruining all the good chances that they had. Granted, the people that were there before, that were the ruling class, weren't doing a good job. The people were hurting. That's why you need good regulation in capitalism, why you need an honest press, and you need people to keep leadership accountable. But we don't have an honest press in the United States. We don't have people that are accountable, particularly if there's a D next to their name. We don't have a system where the people are benefiting. Believe me when I say this. I don't mean this lightly. I don't mean this negatively. The peasants are revolting. All right? Black communities are hurting and they're mad. White rural communities are hurting and they're mad. The suburbs, they're all abuzz. They know something's wrong. And the only people that don't understand what's going on are the rich white liberals who live in their ivory towers and their gated communities and refuse to admit that there is a fire in the house and they won't put it out. There's a problem brewing in the United States. And furthermore, you think, oh, just like this man's story, oh, it can't happen here. It will never happen here. We already have an academia that is completely captured. We have a Hollywood overrun with literal communists for the second time in 100 years. And now we have little tyrants thinking that they're these great politicians going around stealing your money and then being mad at you for calling them out. They're even in our school boards. This is even happening in Podunk, Kentucky. Okay? This is happening everywhere. There's been an infiltration, a long march through the institutions, and they're ready. They want a revolution. These people want communist-style government because it benefits them and only them. They're mad that they don't have power yet. And we are hurting here in the States. This man's story is important, and it's a dire warning that we must take seriously for the next upcoming election and elections. We must be vigilant. Because if the Stars and Stripes falls, there's nowhere to turn to. Just look at Europe right now. All right? Do you trust Russia? The Chinese? India? Really? No. We are the great bastion of freedom. And the foundations are crumbling. We must fix it. This man's warning is going to turn out to be true if we get this election wrong. I firmly believe this. So that's all I've got for you today here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Hug your loved ones. Call your mom. Stay vigilant. Till then, till next time, y'all have a good one.